Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Romeo and Juliet. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at Act 3, Scene 5, an absolutely pivotal scene of Romeo and Juliet. I won't lie, it's a long one. It's about 30 minutes long, this video, so do feel free to pause me, come back, repeat bits, because there are quite a few different sections of the scene that need exploring. And with that in mind, let's get started.
As always, we will start with a quick plot summary. So the scene begins with such positivity and beauty and light because this is the morning after Romeo and Juliet have consummated their marriage. So they have spent an evening together and it is now the morning after, but they know it's very bittersweet because they know that they do have to leave each other. So after some conversation about whether or not it is in fact night or day, they realise that Romeo has to leave because otherwise he is risking death. And as he is leaving, the nurse is coming in and interrupting them, warning them essentially that Juliet's mother is ready to speak to Juliet, and so she's basically trying to, hurry things up. Romeo and Juliet say their last farewell, actually their genuine last farewell, and is at that moment that, of course, Juliet's mother comes to tell her the joyful news or the happy news that Juliet is going to marry Paris. It's no longer, what do you think about marrying Paris? It is, you're going to marry Paris. And when Juliet is like, actually, no, I don't want to marry Paris. I'm not going to be doing this. Juliet's mother is very, very upset and disturbed by it, but basically sort of washes her hands and says, right, well, you tell your dad. Yeah, you say. Which leads to an incredibly difficult scene to watch between Capulet and Juliet, where she begs him to take mercy on her and not make her marry Paris, and he essentially threatens her and says that if he doesn't, she is dead to him and she can just fend for herself. A real threat for that time, because without the protection of her father, she is in a pickle, especially because obviously her husband has been banished. This leaves Juliet desperate and isolated. She has lost her father, she has lost her mother, and even the nurse in Juliet's mind betrays her at the end of the scene when she tells Juliet that in fact she should marry Paris and sort of forget about Romeo. So the scene ends in stark contrast to the beauty of the beginning and the presentation of their love, with Juliet alone, isolated and desperate. So let's have a little look at some sections of the scene in a little bit more detail. So let's start with the good stuff. We've got to start with the good stuff. So what we have here in this presentation of Romeo and Juliet's love is some recurring themes that we've seen all the way through, and that is the imagery of day and night and light and dark. And Juliet says, "Will thou be gone? It is not yet near day. It was the nightingale and not the lark that pierced the fearful hollow of thine ear." So obviously nightingales associated with the evening, lark associated with the early, the morning chorus, the start of the day. And so she's trying to not confuse, she's trying to persuade both Romeo and herself that actually they've got more time. So this is, if you think everything has been like haste, 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 now they're trying to stop time. Now it's about keeping it night. So we've got that juxtaposition between the two types of birds. Little bit of personification of the fearful hollow of thine ear. So we're being reminded of the danger, that actually there is still fear. They are anxious, they are on their toes about, because they have just spent the night together in the Capulet house. Like if anyone finds Romeo, he is scarpered. Okay, nightly she sings on yonder pomegranate tree, believe me, love, it was the nightingale. I love that little moment where she calls him love. Believe me, love, it was the nightingale. And then look at the lovely repetition, the way that Romeo uses the same language, but obviously expresses the reality of it. It was the lark, the herald of the morn. What a lovely metaphor. The speaker, the communicator of morning. No nightingale. Look, love. Again, mirrored language. What envious streaks do lace the severing clouds in yonder east? Night's candles are burnt out. So this is a metaphor for the stars going out. And you've got the envious streaks, again, lovely personification there, the streaks of sunlight coming through. Joconde stands tiptoe on the misty mountain tops. So again, another bit of personification of the sun rising above the mountains. And then the reality obviously hits in this juxtaposition. I must be gone and live, or stay and die. So you've got the juxtaposition between gone and stay, and the juxtaposition between live and die, expressed in this compound sentence that really shows us essentially what his options are. And it's an obvious one. He has to go. Even in amongst this scene of love, there are so many hints of death, and there's so much focus on the kind of ominous tone. Shakespeare's using a lot of foreshadowing here. Look what Juliet says as she sees Romeo go down. So he's going down the balcony, but again, it's that idea about everything falling. She says, "Oh God, I have an ill-divining soul." Okay, so like from the very core of her, from her soul, she feels that there is bad luck, there is accident waiting. Note the fact that you've got an interjection here, "Oh God," and it's an exclamative sentence. "Methinks I see thee now, now thou art below, as one dead in the bottom of a tomb. Either my eyesight fails or thou lookest pale." So imagery of death, we've got the language, the noun tomb, and she sees him dead in that tomb, and you've got the colour symbolism and his paleness suggesting death. So this is a moment of presence, this is a moment of foresight. She's almost predicting the next time she will see him, which is exactly this. Well, it's so sad. And to make it worse, this is, of course, when Juliet's mother arrives in order to give her the news. But before she gives the news, she and Juliet have this conversation, which is full of misunderstanding and confusion. And that is because Juliet's mother is assuming that the reason that she is emotional is because she's weeping for Tybalt. And of course, Juliet is sad about Tybalt, but she's also weeping for Romeo and weeping for herself. And so they have this conversation about getting vengeance on Romeo. And so Juliet uses a lot of kind of word play and double entendre and lots of punning to try and be able to speak her truth whilst abiding by the expectations that her mother is setting out for her. So if you look at this bit here where we've got the hyphens, she says, "Indeed, I never shall be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him. Dead is my poor heart for a kinsman vexed." So if you get rid of that hyphen, you can say, "I never shall be satisfied with Romeo till I behold him." As in, I can't be satisfied until I have him in my arms again. And then dead is my poor heart for a kinsman vexed. So I'm weeping over Tybalt. So she's being quite careful and clever here with her language. She says, "Madam, if you could find out but a man to bear a poison, I would temper it, that Romeo should upon receipt thereof soon sleep in quiet." So temper in Shakespearean times is a pun because it's got two meanings. It means both mix, but it also means weaken. So Juliet's mother can hear, "Oh, I would mix up a poison for Romeo to take." But she's also saying, if there was a poison, I would weaken it, so that all that would happen would be that he would sleep in quiet. This can be a euphemism for death, or she can mean it quite literally. I'd like him to have peace. But note the foreshadowing, the idea that Romeo, she will mix a poison and Romeo will drink it. Well, she takes a potion, doesn't she? And then Romeo believes she's dead, and so also takes a poison. So again, such presence, such foreshadowing, foresight here. "Oh, how my heart abhors to hear him named, and cannot come to him." So again, Juliet in this interjection, so full of emotion. Yeah, her heart does abhor to hear his name. She can't bear to hear his name and know that he's not there. But for Juliet's mother, it's about wreaking the love I bore my cousin upon the body that slaughtered him. But we've got another pun, because wreak can mean avenge, but it can also mean bestow, as in give. So depending on which way you're reading it, it's got totally different meanings. And Juliet's mother believes in everything she's saying. Find thou the means and I'll find such a man. So she's literally like, find a poison and do you know what I mean? I'll do it. I'll find a man. And then we've got this sudden shift in tone. But now I'll tell thee joyful tidings, girl. So we're being presented that this is meant to be, this is meant to be cheering. This is meant to cheer Juliet up. Obviously, that is not going to happen. Big news! The gallant, young and noble gentleman, the county Paris at St. Peter's Church shall happily make thee there a joyful bride. So we've got this lovely triad of adjectives, gallant, young and noble, 3 things that a man should be. It's important that we do recognise that this is a good match. It's not like they're making her marry some ghastly old bloke. I know sometimes people get quite caught up in the fact of, ooh, it's Capulet's friend, but he is a younger man. So we are being reminded, it's, you know, for the parents, they've done a good job in securing Paris. And then we have got, obviously, this modal verb of certainty here. You know, this man shall happily make thee there a joyful bride. But notice the way that we've got this adverb happily, this adjective bride here. There's adjective joyful here. So the assumption is that Paris will resolve. Paris will make her happy without doubt. So this is going to be a very big surprise to Juliet's mother. You've got to remember, she doesn't know anything about this. As far as she's concerned, she's got a dutiful daughter who's going to do what she says. And instead, Juliet inverts her language, repeats the language, but on the negative. Now by St. Peter's Church, so note here and here, and Peter too, as in the saint, he shall not make me there a joyful bride. So that modal verb that we had here is now negated. He shall not, and then repetition of joyful bride. I wonder at this haste that I must wed ere he that should be husband comes to woo. So Juliet is trying to kind of play on tradition a little bit, like, hang on a minute, what's happening here? Like, we've not even spoken. How can he possibly be expecting me to marry him when we've not even spoken? He's not even come to woo me. Note again this focus on haste. Again, it's Juliet that is saying, calm down, slow down. There's no reason for this pace, just as she was with Romeo. I pray you tell my lord and father, madam, I will not marry yet. And when I do, I swear it shall be Romeo, whom you know I hate, rather than Paris. So she's, you know, this is obviously dramatic irony, because again, she's using the sort of truth to perpetuate a lie to kind of keep her mother on side. But the point that she's making is, I'm married to Romeo. She already is. And so obviously we're reminded here, the audience, that she has a real predicament, because obviously if she goes through with this is bigamy, you know. Poor Juliet. And in this moment, of course, she's pleading to her mother. She needs help. If you remember all the way back to Act 1, she and her mother do not have an easy relationship. There's no openness between them. Hence, when Lady Capulet says, here comes your father, tell him so yourself and see how he will take it at your hands. Building tension. We've seen some of Capulet, you know, but we've seen this kind of nice version of him. But at the same time, we know he is the patriarch, and we saw how he went for Tybalt when Tybalt tried to disobey him. So we know that he has got form for getting angry when he's disobeyed, regardless of or not of whether he said that he was happy for Juliet to play a part in that consent. We know that that's gone out the window as well from the conversation with Paris. So we now, as the audience, are on the edge of our seats. Lady Capulet tells him, Ay, sir, but she will none. She gives you thanks. I would the fool were married to her grave. Her mother essentially in that moment, through metaphor, wishes her dead. Marry your grave instead. Like it's like the equivalent to being like, you're dead to me. And of course, we've got horrifying foreshadowing here. Remember, this is still all dramatic irony because the audience knows that Juliet is going to die. Look at Capulet's reaction. Soft, take me with you, wife. That repetition there, take me with you, means hang on a minute, explain that to me again, explain that to me again. So there's a real sense of disbelief. And then look at all these rhetorical questions. How will she none? Like as in she won't. Doth she not give us thanks? Is she not proud? Does she not count her blessed, unworthy as she is, that we have wrought so worthy a gentleman to be her bridegroom? So note this kind of patriarchal expectation. He cannot get his head around the idea that she said no. One, she's meant to be obedient, but two, he's found her a good match. And he has no idea what is stopping. So, just as Juliet called upon aspects of tradition in the wooing, he is calling upon aspects of tradition in terms of the patriarchal structure and the way marriage works. The parent finds the husband. The daughter does what she's told. And so the fact that suddenly she's saying no, yeah, he cannot get his head around it. He has absolute shock. And immediately we can start to see the beginnings of this temper and of what's going to become a tirade of insults to his daughter through this juxtaposition, comparing her, unworthy as she is, to so worthy a gentleman. Now, you can say that that's because of the disobedience, or you could also argue it's because of that concept of gender and superiority and inferiority. She is unworthy as a woman in comparison. Or you can read it as, she's disobeying me, so I'm calling her unworthy. But that's not where it stays. These are just like little snippets of the text. There's obviously a lot more than you can explore, but I wanted to just show you these little bits. So we have a threat. Fettle your fine joints against Thursday next, to go with Paris to St. Peter's Church. So it's like, get yourself together, you are going. And note that fricative alliteration. Fettle your fine joints, it's actually a horse imagery. So a little bit zoomorphic, but it's like, get yourself ready, get yourself groomed to go with Paris St. Peter's Church, or I will drag thee on a hurdle thither. Right, a hurdle is what prisoners were taken on if they were being executed. So we're being given a little hint of the threat of death, but already he's referring to her like a prisoner. Out, you green sickness carrion. So green sickness, that's like images to do with disease. Carrion, rotting meat. Now, why is he calling her rotting meat? Because she is corrupted to him. She is tainted to him because she is going against the traditions of what a young lady should do, which is to say, yes, father. And then he calls her baggage. Now, that's not got a fancy meaning. That means what it does now. Bags, luggage. It's baggage. Okay, we'll talk about that in just 1 second. And then another little insult, little exclamative, you tallow face, so pale. And she's pale because she's full of fear and horror. But again, it's this idea of being diseased. Right, look again. Hang thee young baggage. So we've got this repetition of baggage. Now, at this moment, Juliet has fallen to her knees and she is begging him, good father, I beseech you on my knees, hear me with patience but to speak a word. So all of this insulting is just like boom, 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 boom. Lady Capulet's getting in there as well. And she's just like, please let me talk. And this is the response. Hang thee. So further threats of death. Young baggage. So baggage for the second time. So why is he using this metaphor? Why is he calling her bags, luggage? It's because she, as a girl, is burden. His role with her is to marry her off to secure status, wealth, lands, etc. for him. While she's hanging around the house, she's doing him no good. So by not doing what she's told, she is being a burden to him, just a baggage that he needs to offload. He calls her disobedient wretch. Obedience was a virtue that was necessary, compulsory for a young lady at this time. I'll tell thee what, get thee to church on Thursday. So again, same threat, just as with here. Fettle your foints. What's a foint? Fettle your fine joints against Thursday next. Never after look me in the face, speak not, reply not, do not answer me. So series of imperatives, all giving her orders to never be anywhere near him again. But then the most frightening bit of this section is that declarative sentence at the end, my fingers itch. Just imagine that in your mind, what that suggests. To me, it suggests imminent violence. He wants to hit her, and he's like tingling in his hands with rage. And then finally, in a fairly large speech, so this is he's holding the floor and he's having a massive tirade. Graze where you will, you shall not house with me. So you just graze, like it's another kind of horse metaphor again, isn't it? But it's like be where you will be, like survive where you will survive, but it won't be in my house. And then he reminds her, I'm not playing, I'm not jesting. Thursday is near, another opportunity to say, get you there on Thursday. Right, look at this in terms of patriarchal tradition and structures of the time. Lay hand on heart, advise, and you be mine, I'll give you to my friend. So if you're my daughter, that means you're my possession. And so I can give you to who I want, and I want to give you to my friend. If you be not, so if you're not my daughter, i.e. you're not going to behave like my daughter, look at this listing, hang, beg, starve, die in the streets. He is literally punishing her with the threat once more of death. By my soul, I will never acknowledge thee, nor what is mine shall never do thee good. So she will never benefit from anything that is his. No money, no food, no house, no shelter. Now, sometimes when I teach this, people go, all right, yeah, why didn't she just run away? Why didn't she just run away? Well, what's she going to do? She can't get a job. Without someone to protect her, there is no world. She'll just end up either dying on the streets, like he says, or will end up a prostitute and probably dying of some horrible venereal disease. And yeah, okay, could she run off with Romeo? But then they would be two banished people. How would they live? Although perhaps that would be the best option. Okay, very, very quickly, I've put a lot of focus on Capulet. I want to just have one little look at what glimmer she gets from her mum. Talk not to me, for I'll not speak a word. Do as thou wilt, for I have done with thee. Nice. But, question, does Lady Capulet have a choice? She's part of this patriarchal structure as well, isn't she? She was given to him by her father. She doesn't have any rights. She doesn't have any voice. So is she safer just siding with Capulet, sort of towing the party line? Maybe. But I can't help but read it and feel so sad and feel she's weak and feel she's abandoned her daughter. Which obviously leaves Juliet in such a pickle. God, sorry, not a pickle. So much more than a pickle. She's devastated and she's isolated. And so who does she turn to? The only person that has supported her all the way through, and that is her nurse. Oh God, oh nurse, how shall this be prevented? My husband is on earth, my faith in heaven. How shall that faith return again to earth, unless that husband send it me from heaven by leaving earth? What sayest thou? I've cut out a little bit there. Note the irony of this discussion of death here once more. So she's saying, right, my husband's on earth, so Romeo's physically on earth, but my faith is in heaven. So my love and my like the marriage vows and the sanctity of our vows together is in heaven. How are we going to combine these two things together? Yeah, how are we going to bring them together? Unless my husband goes to heaven to send it back down. Again, more foreshadowing. Yeah, because that would mean he would have to die. What sayest thou? She's looking for one little bit of peace. And the nurse says, Romeo is banished and all the world to nothing, that he dares never come back to challenge you. Challenge means claim, so claim you as his wife. And if he does, he would have to do it by stealth. Then, since the case so stands as now it doth, I think it best you married with the county, as in Paris. Oh, he's a lovely gentleman. And then she goes on to basically say that Romeo's like a dishcloth next to him. Not what Juliet needs, because the nurse is suggesting that she commits bigamy, as in when you're married to more than one person, which, aside from being illegal in most places, it was also considered one of the greatest sins. So not only has the nurse betrayed Juliet by speaking against Romeo and siding with her parents, who are essentially abusing her and neglecting her all in one go, she's also suggesting that Juliet commits a sin against God as well, leaving Juliet in such turmoil. And look at the way that Shakespeare uses language here. Ancient damnation, because, you know, this is a sin. Yeah, ancient damnation. Oh, most wicked fiend. She's talking about the nurse there in these exclamatives. She's talking about how evil this kind of idea is, that the nurse would say this. Okay. Is it more sin to wish me thus forsworn, or to dispraise my lord with that same tongue which she has praised with him above compare 70,000 times? She's weighing up. What am I more offended by? Her suggestion that I damn myself, or the duplicity in which she's now speaking so ill of Romeo when she used to praise him? She's so lost, which means that the only thing that she can do is go to the friar to know his remedy, to ask for a resolution. And again, as we've seen before, and we saw in the previous scene with Romeo and the friar, this suicidal impulse: if all else fail, myself have power to die. Shadowing. Okay, last bits for me, just a recap of the theme. Sorry that this video is so long, but it's such a mega scene. Obviously, it starts with love and it ends with conflict. The recurring big themes, that combination that we see all the way through this play: love and conflict, love and death, consequence. There's so much consequence here. The consequences of going against your family, the consequences of their impulsivity, the consequences of the rash decisions of Capulet. It's all here. The consequences of disobeying your father, and on that note, patriarchal control. If you've got something about the role of fathers, be surprised if in a GCSE exam they use the phrase patriarchy, but anything on the control of fathers is key here. Betrayal. She feels betrayed, not just by her mum, because her mum's always cold, but it's that maternal figure of the nurse who has betrayed her the most. And isolation. She is so totally alone. And then, of course, the biggie, death. Such a powerful scene, such an important scene, such a catalyst of the drama and the tragic end. But we will leave it there. There is no doubt more to say in later videos. If you've got any questions, just drop me a line in the comments. If you haven't already subscribed, click that button so you can see when the next ones are coming out. And there will soon be, because we're getting close to the end, I will soon start posting some theme-based videos and character-based videos as well for Romeo and Juliet. Otherwise, thank you so very much for watching. Happy revising.